Wormholes, particle physics, extra dimensions. Are the wonders of so-called reality really what they appear to be? Or do we exist in an elaborate hologram? Is our universe the result of random activity or the result of intelligent design? If a creator was involved, can we discover him through our perception of divine order? This is Into the Multiverse with Josh Peck.
Welcome again to Into the Multiverse. Last week, again, we were talking about extra-dimensional Earth stuff. We're going to conclude that discussion today. So where we left off, Isaiah 66:1, which says, "Thus saith the Lord, the heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. Where is the house that ye built unto me? Where is the place for my rest?" So, in a sense, the circle of the earth thing and the earth itself are similar, but Scripture makes clear that they're not the same thing entirely. So this isn't like a piece of the earth. This isn't something physical. It seems that the circle of the earth is more connected with, the holy mountain of God, like we just talked about a minute ago. And that's described, like Isaiah 65:25 talks about that. "The wolf and the lamb shall feed together, and the lion shall eat straw like a bullock, and dust shall be the serpent's meat. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, saith the Lord." So the prophet John talks about, Revelation 21:10 says, "And he carried me away in the spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me that great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God." And then verses 22 and 26 of the first chapter of Ezekiel gives us a good representation of the idea of this extra-dimensional construction. So Ezekiel sees these cherubim from heaven. We've talked about this a lot on the show, that they're supporting this type of platform upon which sits, the throne of God. So Ezekiel 1:22 says, "And the likeness of the firmament above the living creature was the color of a terrible crystal stretched forth over their heads above." And then Isaiah 1:26 says, "And above the firmament was," Ezekiel, not Isaiah, excuse me. "And above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, as it appeared, as the appearance of a sapphire stone, and upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness of the appearance of a man above it." So it's interesting that this platform thing is called a firmament. Now imagine if I wanted to explain to a flatlander how, my mountain and my throne on his earth, sort of, and up. Like, how does that work? How could I represent that to him? Well, I would have to show him something two-dimensional. Yes. Otherwise he just can't comprehend any,
right.
He can't see it at all if it's not. And I would have to create something that tries to show a three-dimensional object in two dimensions. It would look really similar to that, It would have to. It would look similar to, like, you have something that's being held up, and you have God sitting on top of it. It would look similar to that if I'm trying to do the pillar and the earth and the pile of, the mountain and the throne on top. It would have to look similar to that. What do you think?
Well, like you said, you would have to take something two-dimensional. You would have to explain to them, okay, a triangle, really.
Yeah,
two-dimensional triangle. But then you have to explain to them, now turn that triangle upwards.
Yeah, and you could never explain it.
You can't explain up, just like we can't explain Anna or Kata.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So, it is, it's such a deep subject when it comes to extra-dimensional things. And we try to explain, we try to wrap our heads around it ourselves by going down a dimension. We're in 3 dimensions, so we try to look at something 2-dimensional to try to wrap our head around something that is 4-dimensional or above, which is insane to me. I still cannot explain Anna or Kata. And
me either.
I want to know Anna and Kata, but it's interesting to me that the higher you go, you need 2 more directions.
Yeah, and for those who didn't catch that episode, Anna and Kata are the names that actually Charles Hinton, I believe, gave those are the two names to the two new directions that you would have in the fourth dimension. So
Yes.
every time you go up a dimension, you get
need two more directions. And we have up, down, left, right.
Yeah. And
then
forward, backward.
And forward, backward.
Yeah, so-
going up a dimension, we would have up, down, left, right, forward, backward, ana, and kata.
Yeah, which we can't wrap
Explain
our
ana
heads.
and kata.
And it
What
would
is
be
that?
yeah, it would be perpendicular to all the other ones because they're always perpendicular. So you have the first dimension, a line. Well, two perpendicular directions apart from that. That's where you get your other two. Two perpendicular directions out from that. That's now where do you go from there? How can there be any more? We can't imagine it. But a flatlander wouldn't be able to imagine up or down.
No,
They would say,
no, so you'd have
well,
to
you
explain
have
a
two, you got
triangle, but it
four.
would have a different direction.
Yeah.
It's called up, and they'd
Yeah.
be like, what?
Yeah, they would have no clue. So you would have to show them something in their own terms. So
Right.
I mean, you're right. This is interesting. The bars of the earth. We get something here too. It seems like there's extra dimensional like bars or like a jail or something. Jonah 2:5-7. This is where we get this from. And it's really interesting because the actual story of Jonah and what happened is so different than what we're taught in Sunday school. I think he actually died. He actually died and was revived because here it says, the waters compassed me about even to the soul. The depth closed me round about. The weeds were wrapped about my head. I went down to the bottoms of the mountains. The earth with her bars was about me forever.
Oh.
Yet hast thou brought up my life from corruption, O Lord my God. When my soul fainted within me, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came in unto thee into thine holy temple. So verse 5 tells us that the water surrounded Jonah, even to the soul, and we read that the depth closed about him. And this was after Jonah was thrown off the boat, and this is before the fish came, or the whale, or whatever people want to say that it is. But different words here, different Hebrew words here are used for waters and depth. Depth comes from to home, and that is the more like it can also mean abyss and grave, stuff like that. So we read that the weeds under the water were wrapped around his head, and verse 6 tells us that he went down to the bottoms of the mountain. So it's likely at that point that Jonah had actually drowned, and he was headed for Sheol. And we can, to further support that, Jonah 2:6, it says the Lord spake unto the fish, Jonah 2:6 says that the Lord brought up Jonah's life from corruption. And that Hebrew word for corruption means like pit, destruction, grave. It's the same kind of idea. He died. But God brought him back to life. And Jonah 2:10 actually says, and the Lord spake unto the fish, and it vomited out Jonah from upon the dry land. So I think that's when Jonah actually came back to life.
After 3 days.
Yeah, and that to me is more miraculous, and it makes more sense that how do you live? You can't be alive like inside of a fish that's digesting your body, and like it doesn't make any sense. Even if it's a whale or whatever. But if he actually died and the fish is like digesting him, I mean that's a huge miracle, So that's really cool. There's a lot of this kind of stuff. I want to kind of skip ahead because there's the four corners, the ends of the earth. People have to get the book to get all of it. There's a lot of this kind of stuff that we won't have time to get to. We could just do 10 episodes on it, really.
Oh, I know. I think it's fascinating in the Bible where God speaks about saying that He'll separate our sins from as far as
the east is from the west. Yeah,
I think
which
that's
is
wonderful.
basically infinite. Yeah, and I think that's really cool too. That kind of language in the Bible always really intrigues me because and again, it's because we're into quantum physics, so we're going to see physics everywhere we look. But I don't know. It's just that stuff is really cool.
Math is everywhere, and I love our daughter because Jacqueline will see math in everything.
She does.
Loves math. This girl, she's in first grade, and she is testing way higher in math.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing in school. I was really good at math. She understands it. Over the summer from kindergarten, before she hit first grade, she was asking Josh and I how to do the vertical addition problems.
Yeah.
And she got it
we sat and did a
totally
bunch
got
of
it.
math problems
She
just
knew
as
10
our
plus
family
10.
time. Yeah.
She knew 10 plus 10. And she knew 100 plus 100. And
Yeah.
she knew, I told her, when I explained it to her, when we went to her open house for first grade, she looked at the numbers that she was going to be learning. She's like, whoa, 1 to 120. How do you even get that?
Yeah.
And I said, Jacqueline, start at 100. What's 100 plus 10? If you have 100 things and you add 10 more things, what is it? She's like, 110. I'm like, what's 10 plus 10? Well, 20.
Yeah, she's a pro now. She totally gets it.
And I'm like, you are going to do just fine in first grade.
Yeah.
And she does. And she gets subtraction. I just, this girl, at first it was scary to her. She wanted to do the big numbers.
Yeah.
And she sees math and everything. So she'll be there and asking what's 1,000 plus whatever or minus whatever or minus 1,000. I said, well, if you have 1,000 things and you take them all away, how many things do you have left? She's like, well, nothing. I was like, that's easy. That's
she's
easy.
really smart.
So now she's thinking in mathematics in everything that she does.
Yeah.
And the things that she comes up with, I just cannot get over it.
Yeah, she's brilliant. Yeah, I'm really proud of her. She's amazing. And yeah, and so I always find it interesting that there's a lot of that kind of stuff in the Bible too. And I figure if our daughter can see it, in just our world, I kind of, that's kind of comparable to like us seeing it in higher things. But yeah, I mean, people end up having to get the book because there's just so much of this. But it talks about the four corners, the ends of the earth, even Nebuchadnezzar's tree, the tree of Nebuchadnezzar. Because imagine, and people are like, well, how can a tree cover the whole earth? Well, for one thing, it was a dream, so, or it was a vision or whatever. But think about it in terms of an extra-dimensional tree. You have your flatland earth again. If you have a tree in the middle and the branches are coming out all over and hanging down, well, that's how you can have a tree cover the whole earth, and it even says that like it fed the birds and stuff. Now it would look really weird to a person of like a flatlander. It would just look like a piece of a branch is just there hovering, not connected to anything because they wouldn't see the whole tree. But again, this is a vision or a dream. So there's that. How a stationary earth can be in motion. I wrote a lot about that too. Psalm 93:1 talks about, and it's similar. There's a lot more to it that we just won't have time to get into, but it's similar to the idea of moving the pillar. The earth is still stationary on the pillar, but you can move. You move the pillar, and all that stuff. Okay, and we're going to talk more about that when we come back from the break. We do have to take a break, so stay with us.
The Trump administration is now vowing to crack down and punish deep state saboteurs.
Today, America is being manipulated through a Washington-based shadow government.
This is a war now, the deep state against you and the President of the United States.
The artificial chaos engineered by elites and advanced by enemies of democracy is being propagandized by a devoted media machine to take down President Trump.
I submit to you that the establishment that you talk about, the so-called deep state, exists on both sides, the left and the right, and President Trump is up against both of them.
But this is not the whole story. A much more sinister quest behind the deep state is at work to usher in a final world order.
He's an outsider. He's not them. He's not part of the club. He hasn't been through the initiation rites. He didn't belong to the secret society. He didn't belong to the secret society. The secret society.
They're trying to cheat you out of the future and the future that you want. They're trying to cheat you out of the leadership you want.
Globalists, secret societies, and world power brokers anticipate the insidious arrival of a messianic strongman they call the Gray Champion. Now, for the first time ever, expert on occultism and best-selling author Dr. Thomas Horn joins a senior analyst from the Pentagon and a retired police detective to bring you the shocking truth behind an ancient cabal, almost too fantastic to believe.
If these forces are successful, this country will not survive.
They have a plan for your future, but you can know their secret and stop them in their tracks. Get ready, saboteurs, how secret deep state occultists are manipulating American society toward a final world order.
America is being manipulated by sinister occult forces and a Washington-based shadow government. But now, for the first time ever, expert on occultism and best-selling author Dr. Thomas Horn is joined by senior analyst from the Pentagon, Colonel Bob McGinnis, and retired police detective Carl Gallups to expose these nefarious forces. Skywatch TV is proud to announce the Saboteurs Collection. When you order the new books, Saboteurs, Gods and Thrones, and The Deeper State from Skywatch TV, you'll also receive free of charge for a limited time the exclusive oversized hardback collector editions of the classic 2-volume set, The Devils and Evil Spirits of Babylonia, and The Fallen Angels and the Heroes of Mythology. These two timeless masterpieces, finally in print again after 100 years, are the perfect gift for the scholar or Bible student in your life, and hold a retail value of over $60 all by themselves, but are included absolutely free when you purchase the limited time Saboteurs Collection. But that's not all. You'll also receive the never-before-aired DVD Off the Record, featuring exclusive interviews with Dr. Thomas Horn, Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis, and Detective Carl Gallups, further exposing the dark secrets of globalist elites and how to stop them in their tracks. This content is only available in this exclusive offer and will not be aired anywhere else. Finally, you'll also receive The Shadow Hand, the over 24-hour Steve Quayle and Tom Horn definitive audio series on CD. This audio collection discloses the terrifying truth behind the infamous WikiLeaks dumps, the shadow government, and so much more. This unprecedented special offer sold separately holds a retail value of over $175. Yours now for only $29.99 plus shipping and handling. The holiday gift season is coming, and you won't find this collection anywhere else. So don't delay. Order the Saboteurs Collection for somebody you love now at skywatchtvstore.com or call 1-844-750-4985.
Welcome back to Into the Multiverse. So let's just jump right back into it where we left off. Now, this is cool, and I do want to touch on this if we have time before the cameras turn off, because we're filling up these cards. But this is really cool, seeing from a higher dimensional perspective. Now, at the return of Jesus, we're told throughout the Bible that everyone in the world will see him. And there's been a lot of ideas on how that could be possible. One of the leading ones is, well, you know, there's going to be cell phones, and people will upload videos, and you can see it live and everything. It could be that. It could be. Another idea that people have said is like, well, if the earth is actually flat, then, you know, if Jesus comes down, then everybody would be able to see him. No, because I can't see the sky over Jerusalem. I can't even see the sky in the next state over, you know.
Right.
Like, I can't see an airplane that's flying in Ohio. You know, our eyes aren't that good. No. You know, if Jesus is descending on the Mount of Olives, we're not going to be able to see that, you know. But I think there is a way that we actually could see it, and it has to do with this. So Revelation 1:7 says, "Behold, he cometh with the clouds, every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him, even so, amen." So it says even those who have pierced him. Now there's ideas on what that means. Some people think, well, maybe it's the descendants of the Romans or something, or I think it's literally those who crucified him are going to see him, because I think that there's a type of fold of space, you know, a fold of the third dimension into the fourth dimension. Again, the flat land earth idea, and let's say you take it, you take the edges and you just kind of fold them down, you know, kind of like draping a napkin over a cup or something. You fold it down. Now, as you're doing that, the Flatlanders are you know, they're moving in the third dimension. They wouldn't they would know something was up, you know,
Right.
but they wouldn't really be able to understand what was happening because
Right.
again, they don't have up or down. So they're still seeing everything, you know, in two-dimensional perspective. But if you move it up in a way, then you can show them who's sitting on the mountain, you know, who's sitting on the throne. You can show, and they would all be able to see that. It wouldn't be as far away as, you know, as like Jerusalem is to us now. It would be a fold in space where now it's a lot closer.
Yeah.
What's interesting too is if that's happening to a flatlander, you know, stars and stuff that are around in two-dimensional space would like disappear, you know, because now you're seeing into
A different dimension.
a different dimension. You're seeing into hyperspace. Now, so here's why that's interesting. And also I think that we have an example of that in Matthew 4:8 that says the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain and show him all the kingdoms of the world, the glory of them. Well, I think, imagine you take a flatlander. Now Jesus could have had extra dimensional perspective when he's in the spirit. You know, who knows how that worked? But you take a flatlander and you bring him up onto this mountain. You know, you could show him all the kingdoms of the earth. You know, he could just look down and see them all. So we get some of this too from Zechariah 14:4, which says, "His feet shall stand on that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the middle toward the east, toward the west. There shall be a great valley. Half the mountains shall remove towards the north, half towards the south." So again, how could we see that from here? And I think this is how. Now, as I said before, you're doing this to the Flatlanders, you know. They're seeing up at this throne, and all the stuff that they're used to seeing, like they would have their own two-dimensional sun, or, you know, they would have all, it would all change and in a sense fall away. Well, here's what we got. Matthew 24:29-30. "Immediately after the tribulations of those days, the sun shall be darkened, the moon shall not give her light, the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. They shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory." And then we also get that Revelation 21:23, continuing with the theme. "The city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon, to shine in it, for the glory of God did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof." So if you're folding it in that way, all that stuff would seem to disappear. You know, the sun wouldn't give its light. You know, the moon would be darkened, the stars would fall away. And I do think a lot of that's angelic language, like with the stars. You know, I do think a lot of that. But that could also be how those who have pierced him can even see him. You know, because if they're in essentially another dimension in Sheol or Hades or, you know, whatever, hell, you know, if they're there, you know, and then this dimensional shift thing is happening, they would be able to see him too. Everything in spiritual existence and physical existence would.
It's another curtain falling away, just like in the tabernacle.
Yeah.
From the Holy of Holies and the inner courts. And
That's a good point.
So it's just like another curtain being torn.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, so
you can see into.
Yeah, the split between dimensions is in a sense done away with. Like if you keep Flatlanders in their own two-dimensional space, then there's a split between the second and third dimension for them. But if you're folding it, so now they're actually interacting with the third dimension in a way. I mean, they would still see things in two-dimensional perspective. Right. They wouldn't know exactly what was happening, but they would know it would be horrifying.
Yeah.
They wouldn't know that they're traveling traveling through another dimension to get this perspective of you know, a mountain and a throne and all this stuff. But they would know something was wrong. So, and there's a lot more to it. I mean, there's a lot more about like the New Jerusalem above, the difference between the Jerusalem above and the Jerusalem below, what it means when it says that the New Jerusalem is the mother of us all. There's so much to this that we just don't have time for. We do have to wrap it up. But this is really interesting, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just us. Maybe people think we're crazy,
like
or
that.
maybe the flat earthers don't like it. But
that's okay. They don't have to.
That's okay. But you know, to wrap it up, going back to gravity, this might explain why there's extra gravity? You know, what are scientists actually detecting? It might be some of this extra dimensional stuff, at least some of the parts that are connected with the Earth and close enough to the Earth to affect the gravity of it. And that to me is really interesting. So, yeah, I think we are just about out of time, but
I think so.
So we'll wrap it
It's been
up.
a wonderful conversation, though.
It has, and I want to thank you all for joining us into the Multiverse. We've got some very exciting programs coming up on Skywatch TV and here on Into the Multiverse, so make sure you stay tuned for that. We're going to be talking about me and Derek's book, The Day the Earth Stands Still. Lots of really interesting stuff for the end of 2017. So thank you for joining us. Stay with us till next time. All that being said, take care and God bless.
The Satanists wanted to install their own tribute, a pagan idol, on the Capitol grounds, right next to the Ten Commandments.
Billions around the planet are witnessing a world in the grasp of sadistic spiritual darkness. This unholy alliance has infected our governments, our religious institutions, and our societies. The world appears to be unraveling. But can the evil behind these dark supernatural forces be defeated? Is everything playing out just as the Bible predicted it will in the final days? At last, you can know the answers to mankind's most urgent questions and learn your destiny among today's events in the new, unprecedented work taking the prophecy world by storm. Gods and Thrones, Nakash, Forgotten Prophecy and the Return of the Elohim by best-selling author, former decorated law enforcement officer, and senior pastor Carl Gallups. This changes everything. Available now wherever fine books are sold.